Do you think it's fair to these Big Ten and ACC players if there was a scenario where excuse me, I'm sorry, the Pac-12, the Big Ten and the Pac-12, if they had to play 2 seasons essentially in 2021? So we're talking, okay, now they're going to play in the spring to make up for this season, and then they're going to play again in the fall?
I think it's crazy. I think it's an absolute waste of time, and I think it's wrong to put the players in that position. Listen, I love college football as much as anyone. I would watch every single game. I would probably be out covering games with our crew. But the bottom line is this. You can't ask young men, grown men, whatever it is, you can't ask them to play a 10, 12, 13-game season in the spring. Finish up in what, March, April? And then all of a sudden have to turn around in August and be back in camp to play games in that first weekend of September. You're talking about 3-4 months between 2 seasons and potentially up to 28, 30 games. You can't ask players to go through that. There's a reason football has such a long offseason. You need that time to recuperate. You need that time to rebuild. You need that time to get stronger and work on the game. And you can't do that. That's why I'm convinced. Like, if you think of college football in the spring, take Trevor Lawrence out, take Justin Fields out, take the wide receivers at Alabama that are going to be the next 2 first-rounders, Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle. Take them out. Take out Travis Etienne, the best running back in the country. Every single big name that you can list off right now, write it down on a piece of paper and put a big X across it because they're not going to play. And I would guess over 100 players that are draft-eligible prospects would decide, you know what, I've got to focus on the draft, and I can't play an 8, 10-game season and be ready to play my rookie year in the NFL.
Well, Todd, let me ask you this. So if that's the case, and I'm listening to what you're saying, the Big Ten and the Pac-12 are going to be without football, period, because it makes no sense. They can't have a football season this year. If that's the case, but the ACC and the SEC goes ahead and it has football, what does that do for their conference? What does it do for the Big Ten and Pac-12 if they don't have football, while 2 other conferences elected to have football?
Well, the Pac-12 and the Big Ten, clearly it's their right to try to play football in the spring. And if they do, then the players will have to decide whether they want to play or not. What it does is it puts, in my opinion, these players in the Big Ten and the Pac-12 at a competitive disadvantage. If they're playing in the spring and you're telling me the other 3 conferences decide to play in the fall, now everyone in the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12, all those players are able to get the correct amount of rest and off-season process to rebuild their bodies, whereas the other 2 conferences, it's kind of a rush to try to get back. Plus the fact, as I mentioned, it's going to be such a diluted season if you're talking about playing the Pac-12 and the Big Ten in the spring, because so many players. I mean, just from those 2 conferences alone, I would guess maybe 40 to 50 of some of the best players in those conferences and the top quarterbacks and the top running backs are going to say, thanks, I love you, teammates, but I have to do what's right for me. I can't put myself at risk. And from a draft standpoint and from being ready for my rookie season in the NFL, I think we would see a really diluted product in the spring if they decide to play football.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.